This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, Eastern Montana, and welcome to the May 2022 Drought and Climate Outlook Briefing. I'm Brandon Bigglebach, a meteorologist with the Weather Service in Glasgow, and I'll be standing in for Patrick Gilchrist this evening. So, what we want to talk about tonight, we'll start off with, is that over the past 30 days, we have received a bit of relief in terms of precipitation across eastern Montana. As you can see from the graphic provided, any area shaded in yellow or warmer has received greater than 2 inches of precipitation, and any area with a green or cooler color has received less than 2 inches of precipitation over the past 30 days. So from this you can see that pretty much the entirety of eastern Montana has received greater than 2 inches, with some places along the North Dakota border and south of the Billings area have received even potentially more than 5 inches of precipitation in the past month or so. One highlight to discuss from the past month is that we had 2 blizzards in the month of April. Now, when Patrick gave this presentation last month, you heard him discuss the one historic blizzard that we had, and he was mentioning in the forecast about an upcoming blizzard that we were expecting. And as it turns out, we did get blizzard conditions in the days following last month's presentation, and a lot of locations along the Yellowstone River Valley and in eastern Montana did receive accumulating snowfall with high winds and had blizzard conditions. You can see from the table here that there are locations in and around eastern Montana that got upwards of a foot or even a foot and a half. And you can see from the satellite image on the right here that the Yellowstone River Valley itself was able to melt away its snow pretty quickly. But in the day or two following that snowfall, you can see all the areas of white where these places all got accumulating snowfall from that blizzard, with the heaviest of it being along the easternmost part of the state and over into the Dakotas. We did also have a prolonged accumulating rain event in the first half of May. This event occurred around May 13th or so, and you can see that from all these reports, there were a lot of places that had greater than 2 inches of rainfall over a span of 2 days. And there were even some places that got over 3 inches of rain. A couple places in Sheridan County, for example, a couple places in Richland County got over 3 inches of rain from that one system, but many places received at least half an inch. So that is welcome rain. We could certainly use more, but we'll take at least what we can get so far. And this has actually led to a significant green up across many parts of northeast Montana. While some places out in the western part of the area, such as Phillips County, Petroleum County, and places further west, may still be somewhat brown and haven't had the full green up because they didn't get nearly as much precipitation as the eastern areas, most of the region is seeing a really nice green up for this time of year. Moving on, I want to talk about the temperature recap for the past month. This is the rankings across the country based on the state level and based on the county level for April 2022, and ranking it from the period 1895 to 2022. As you can see for Montana, we were much below average, but it wasn't quite, on the state level, it wasn't quite the record coldest, but it was definitely cooler than normal. And having those 2 blizzards in the month certainly helped bring those temperatures down enough to put us in that low ranking for temperatures. And you can see if you go over to the county level, the story is pretty much the same. Valley County and Daniels County didn't have quite as low, they weren't quite as far below average as the rest of eastern Montana, but you can see the rest of it was much below average over the month. Moving on to precipitation, you can see that Montana as a whole was generally above average. The Dakotas were, above average to much above average. But here in eastern Montana, overall as a state, we were right around, a little above average. You can see the breakdown as you move over to the county level side, where a lot of folks in southeastern Montana had much above average precipitation. And as for the northeastern part of the state, you can see the Yellowstone River Valley had above average precipitation, but many of the other locations in the northwest and along the north had generally near average precipitation for the month of April. Looking at the current month in our temperature trends from the 1st of May through yesterday, May 18th, you can see that a lot of eastern Montana is slightly above normal in terms of temperature, with some areas in Garfield County registering well above normal, and maybe some parts of far southeastern far southern Montana seeing a little bit below normal, but generally on average, this part of the state has been above normal for the month so far, with places along the Rocky Mountains and into Idaho seeing below normal temperatures so far this month. And if we kind of pull that back out and look at it on a national scale, you can see that typically the central portion of the country was above normal, with the Pacific Northwest being the strongest signal of below normal temperatures so far this month, and the far southern portions of the United States being the hottest, with Montana kind of straddling that line between warmer than normal and cooler than normal. Looking at precipitation for the current month to date, this would include that May 13th precipitation event I mentioned earlier, which was the 11th, 12th, and 13th. You can see that eastern Montana, and specifically northeastern Montana, a lot of that area is sitting above normal, with some places right along the North Dakota border sitting over 1.5 inches above normal. Some places further to the west, including Billings, is seeing slightly below normal precipitation for the month, and then places up in central Montana, including Great Falls area, is seeing some fairly below normal precipitation for the month. But if you if we zoom out on that national scale, much of the United States, especially in the south, is slightly below normal, and a lot of the northern tier states are exhibiting either near normal or above normal. Montana specifically, again, a lot of the above normals kind of contained to the northeastern part of the state, and then right along the Idaho border up in the Rocky Mountains, and then down in the Beartooths as well. Looking at snow depth for the month of May, so far, as of right now, as you would expect with the weather we've been having, really the low level snow is gone. But if you look at the mountain snowpack, there are still significant snow amounts in the mountains. In the Beartooths, you're still looking at some locations 50 to 100 inches, and that's the same for the Rocky Mountain front up in northwest Montana. You can see the Snowies and the Bear's Paw. There is still some snow, but that is slowly starting to diminish here in the eastern half of the state. Looking at snow water equivalent for the individual basins in Montana and Wyoming, you can see that now pretty much every basin for mountain snow water equivalent is above normal for this time of year. And you can see that even, again, some places right along the Idaho border, where they've had a lot more precipitation. You can see is fairly well above normal throughout the basin, but now each of the basins in closer to eastern Montana are now exhibiting at least some signal of being above normal. If you go to Wyoming and you kind of look at, the Yellowstone Basin in Wyoming is slightly, above normal. They're 106% of normal. The Tongue is 107% of normal. But even the ones that are below normal, the Powder, the Bighorn, and the Shoshone are in the 90 percentile. So they're not far below normal. They're pretty close. It's only once you get to southern Wyoming that you're getting really dry conditions throughout the basin there for snow water equivalent. Looking at the peak snowpack for a couple of the basins, the Upper Yellowstone and the St. Mary's Basin, you can see that the snow water equivalent for the Upper Yellowstone is at 102% of the median as of yesterday. And you can see based on the trend that we were lagging behind the median up until just recently when it finally caught up as it's starting to drop off. Now it's starting to drop off, but be a little bit above the median. When you look at the St. Mary's Basin, the trend has followed the median quite a bit more. It's been either just below or even more above than the Upper Yellowstone has. You can see that they're at 121% of the median as of yesterday, but they're hanging fairly well above that median line for quite a while now, for at least a month. So that has remained above normal, and so far it looks to continue that way for now. Looking at the climate snapshots of the year to date for 2022 at Billings and Glasgow, and you can see that with the rain event that we had here in early to mid-May, that has brought Glasgow from being fairly well below normal up to right up close to normal for the year to date so far. Glasgow is now sitting at 93% of normal as of today. When you look at Billings and Miles City, both of which were lower last month than they are now, you can see that Billings has now gone above normal. They are 110% of normal as of today, and Miles City is not quite caught up yet, but they're getting much better. Miles City is now up to 75% of normal, whereas last month they were right around or slightly below 50% of normal for the year. So each of these sites that have been well below normal are finally starting to catch up. And those blizzards that we had in April and then the rain that we've had so far in May has certainly helped with bringing those totals closer to normal. But if you look at, or another way to look at year-to-date precipitation percentage of normal, looking at some of our cooperative observer locations, you can see that some of these individual January to April, or January of last year to April of this year. So kind of looking at since we've really kind of started in this heavy drought since last year, you can see that some of these sites are playing catch up still. We are getting closer to normal. We are closer to normal than we were last month. A lot of these numbers were quite a bit lower last month than they are now. So again, those events have helped us, but since last January up through now, this sort of 18-month time frame that we're kind of talking about here, we're still lagging behind normal in precip. So we got a ways to go really to be drought busting, and we'll keep talking about that here coming up. As we get into the drought monitor, the latest release, which was released today on Thursday, May 19th, you can see that a lot of Montana is still dealing with severe drought. There's been some signs of improvement along the North Dakota border in more of the southeast areas, which the drought monitor authors have felt there's been enough improvement to bring these areas up to abnormally dry, with a lot more moderate drought in along the North Dakota border, and then kind of coming in along the Yellowstone River Valley, leading up into the Billings area. Along the Milk River, you can see that we're still in severe drought here, D2, and then there's some indication along the High Line heading west of Malta that there's still an extreme drought, D3. And if you look down into Wyoming, this kind of matches up along the South Dakota and far southern North Dakota areas. It's a D1 moderate drought with more central and western areas getting worse as you go towards D2 and D3. Again, we like to hit this every month, and so we want to reiterate, please use these links provided to this survey to report your impacts. This is the most important thing you can do to influence how the authors see drought across your area, and will influence how they write the drought monitor and create these maps each month. We don't encourage going to any person in specific or trying to email an individual person. We really would recommend just filling out the survey, which will allow you to give your location and report how you have been impacted by the drought and what you are seeing at your area right now. And that can help shape what the authors see through their analyses, and can really help them determine, whether or not they need to back off on drought conditions, or whether they need to make them worse, whether they need to make them better. Your voice really does help them with that. So please, if you have impacts from the drought, please use these links, fill them out. This is the best way to get that information to them, which can then feed back to you. Looking up into the coming, few days, we do have a precipitation system heading through the region now, which will last through Friday. It's a pretty strong cyclone that has spun up over Alberta and is dipping down into Montana right now, and will bring some light rain through Friday. Certainly not as much as we have seen, in the past couple of weeks, but any rain we'll take right now. It looks like while it mostly should fall as rain, there are some indications, especially as temperatures cool, that you could get a mixture of maybe a little bit of snow, even at the lower elevations. Maybe you'll see a few flakes, or maybe you'll see some soft hail or grapple. There's little ice pellets here and there, but for the most part, it should predominantly be rain. In the higher elevations, which would basically be like the Little Rockies in the west or in the Snowies, you could see more chances for actually accumulating snowfall overnight tonight and through Friday. But for the most part, eastern Montana should look at some light rain showers through the coming day. Looking at the 7-day forecast, basically what we're seeing in the rain forecast through tomorrow is going to be the majority of what the day 1 to 7 total precipitation forecast is showing here. So most of that should fall within the next day or so. And then after that, we are looking at warming and drying conditions for much of eastern Montana for the coming week. Once you get out beyond the next week, looking kind of an 8 to 14 day time range, there's indications for eastern Montana that we're going to hover kind of in this near normal temperature range, though some areas could possibly see a little below normal temperatures, and some areas could see some slight chances for above normal temperatures. But while the next coming week is supposed to be mostly dry, they're looking at the 1 to 2 week time frame leading into early June being above normal in terms of precipitation. And if we go out now through the seasonal and look at the drought, we've had precipitation in the past month. we're looking at more precipitation today, and then in the 1 to 2 week time frame, we're looking at a little more precipitation probably. So what's that going to do to our drought? Unfortunately, overall on the season, when you look at now through August 31st and the end of August, kind of coming in the end of traditional meteorological summer, unfortunately, we're looking at drought persisting. So we're not looking at really good chances of improvement in the drought scenario for eastern Montana. And when we get to start looking at the longer range climate outlooks that support that, you can see we're starting to see a trend, and it's kind of spread up from the south, of above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation. Now, while eastern Montana for the month of June kind of has a little to no confidence in any individual solution, as you can see by us being under equal chances, that just means that those folks at the climate office are really not sure whether we are going to see above normal, near normal, or below normal for either precip or temperatures. There's just not a lot of confidence in the 1 month outlook right now as it is. But when you start moving into the summer outlook, June, July, August, now we're starting to see a little bit more confidence, a little bit more signal of warming temperatures with below normal precipitation. Now, this is kind of a typical summer outlook for given what we're seeing right now with drought, given what we're expecting with the general climate signals shifting as they are, above normal temperatures, below normal precip, spreading up into our area, so that by late summer, most of eastern Montana is going to be square in the below normal precip, medium confidence, and lower confidence in temperatures, but there is definitely some improving signal of above normal temperatures for this area as well during that time frame. Finally, just kind of want to look, I know that we're kind of coming up on the end of calving and lambing season if we haven't already hit it, but a lot of these animals are still very young, and this rain event, which may include a little bit of that more frozen type precipitation overnight into tomorrow, still does lend itself to some concerns that if there are any calving or lambing operations going on, or any sensitive young livestock still out there, that there's going to probably be some at least moderate stresses, some areas of severe stresses throughout the next couple of days because of the cooling temperatures, because of the rain that we're going to get, because there might be a little bit of frozen precipitation added in there as well. So it's just something to be aware of. It's certainly not like what we've seen in the past month. We're not talking extreme scenarios for a widespread area, but it's something to be, something to at least keep your mind on, in case you do have those sensitive livestock around, that you may just want to make sure that they're protected. And we've shown this many months as well. It's just kind of, well, what did we talk about with cold advisory for newborn livestock? Is just something that we've produced based on research and feedback from the ranching community. These are the types of things that can lead to problems for young livestock. Wind chills, rain and wet snow, high humidity because it can't dry off the animal, and combinations of these events, which can make things really stressful. So that's what our cold advisory for newborn livestock is based on. So that's all I've got. Feel free to get in contact with us. And our contact information is below if you have any questions. And Patrick should return for our next briefing, which will be held on June 16th of 2022. Once again, this has been Brandon Bigelbach with the National Weather Service in Glasgow. I thank you for your time. Stay safe out there.